Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, your body seems to resist your efforts, your energy wanes without explanation, and your emotions swing in ways that leave you bewildered? This sensation is not merely fatigue or moodiness. It is the subtle, relentless whisper of chronic stress, reshaping the very chemistry of your body. Chronic stress is a silent disruptor, an invisible force that seeps into the core of your physiology, reshuffling hormones in a way that can leave women feeling trapped in cycles of imbalance that seem impossible to break. It begins in the nervous system, where the brain interprets every challenge, every worry, and every pressure as a signal for survival. The adrenal glands respond with precision, releasing cortisol, the quintessential stress hormone, intended to mobilize energy and sharpen focus for fleeting moments of danger. Yet in today's world, danger is no longer fleeting. It lingers in emails, deadlines, societal expectations, and the subtle pressures of everyday life. Cortisol, when sustained at elevated levels, begins to exert influence far beyond its intended purpose. It whispers into every corner of the endocrine system, adjusting insulin sensitivity, shifting reproductive hormones, and even altering the delicate balance of thyroid hormones. For women over 30, this hormonal dance becomes particularly precarious as the natural rhythm of fertility, metabolism, and cellular regeneration is already negotiating the slow, steady changes of age. The body, once fluid in its hormonal responsiveness, now finds itself under siege from a chronic signal of urgency, signaling that the environment is unsafe, that energy must be hoarded, and that reproduction may need to be postponed. What is often invisible to the mind becomes palpable in the body: fatigue that sleep cannot resolve, weight that stubbornly refuses to shift despite strict diets, skin that reacts with inflammation or unexplained breakouts, and cycles that grow unpredictable, frustrating, and emotionally taxing. Dr. Felice Gersh has long emphasized that stress is not merely an emotional state, it is a biochemical event with cascading consequences. When cortisol remains elevated day after day, it begins to desensitize receptors, a process akin to a warning siren becoming background noise. Yet the internal havoc continues. Insulin, the hormone responsible for stabilizing blood sugar, becomes erratic under this pressure, sometimes surging excessively, sometimes failing to signal properly, leaving metabolism sluggish and energy stores mismanaged. Meanwhile, estrogen and progesterone, those key regulators of reproductive health, feel the weight of cortisol's dominance, leading to irregular cycles, disrupted ovulation, and in some cases, challenges with fertility. The interplay of these hormones is more than physiological. It touches the psyche, the emotional landscape, and the ability to experience joy, clarity, and balance in life. Women begin to notice patterns. The mornings arrive with heaviness rather than light. Motivation fades in mid-afternoon. Sleep becomes restless, and anxiety or irritability creeps into moments that previously felt simple or calm. It is as if the body itself is in a state of negotiation, trying to manage conflicting priorities without clear guidance. And yet, within this complex interplay, there lies a truth that is often overlooked. The body's response to stress is not a sign of weakness, but a signal, a language of biology asking for attention, care, and conscious intervention. Understanding these signals is the first step toward reclaiming agency over one's health. While it may feel overwhelming to consider that multiple hormones are out of sync, the beauty of this system is its inherent plasticity. The body can adapt, recalibrate, and restore balance when the right conditions are provided. Conditions that include not only rest, nutrition, and exercise, but also mindfulness, emotional processing, and the establishment of daily routines that signal safety to the nervous system. Chronic stress may hijack sleep, appetite, and emotional resilience, but it does not have to define the narrative of health. Each choice, each moment of awareness, becomes an opportunity to signal to the body that life is not an unending emergency, that survival is not a constant state, and that the rhythms of life, metabolic, reproductive, and psychological, can once again align. Dr. Felice Gersh emphasizes that the integration of mind and body awareness, combined with practical lifestyle interventions, forms the cornerstone of restoring hormonal balance. This is not a process of quick fixes or superficial solutions, but a deep, intentional approach to living in harmony with one's own physiology. Techniques such as meditation, structured sleep schedules, nutrient-dense eating, and gentle physical activity all communicate a message of safety to the nervous system, encouraging cortisol levels to normalize, insulin sensitivity to improve, and reproductive hormones to find their natural cadence. Beyond the physiological, this restoration is philosophical. It is a declaration that the body is not an adversary to be controlled, but a partner to be understood, a guide that can reveal the hidden costs of neglecting stress, and a canvas upon which balanced living can be painted with deliberate choices. The awakening to this reality brings with it not only knowledge but empowerment. It is the recognition that the tension and imbalance are not permanent states, that hormonal disruption is reversible, and that reclaiming vitality is within reach when we honor the signals the body sends. Yet, as enlightening as this awareness is, it carries a subtle tension, a suspenseful reminder that knowledge alone is not enough. Action must follow. Without intentional steps, chronic stress remains a quiet architect of imbalance, weaving its influence through metabolism, fertility, mood, and even skin health, creating a slow and often unnoticed erosion of well-being. The paradox is profound. The very awareness of imbalance can generate stress, yet without awareness, the body continues to suffer silently. This is the delicate threshold where education transforms into responsibility, where understanding cortisol's impact must be coupled with the courage to implement lifestyle adjustments, to set boundaries, and to prioritize self-care in a world that often glorifies busyness and neglect. As we explore further into this journey, it becomes evident that stress is not an isolated factor. It is a multifaceted challenge, a biological signal wrapped in emotional texture, demanding both respect and strategy. And within this challenge lies the invitation to engage with life consciously, to honor the body's messages, and to reclaim hormonal balance not through coercion or willpower alone, but through informed, mindful, and consistent practice. In recognizing the influence of chronic stress, and by embracing the principles highlighted by experts such as Dr. Felice Gersh, women gain the tools to not only survive, but thrive, to restore harmony between mind, body, and spirit, and to cultivate a life where energy, clarity, and resilience are not fleeting aspirations, but living realities, awaiting only the decision to respond, act, and nurture the self with intention and grace. As you begin to understand the profound ways chronic stress infiltrates the body, it becomes clear that the implications extend far beyond what the mind perceives. The subtle shifts in cortisol, insulin, estrogen, and progesterone create a silent storm, one that can leave women feeling as though they are moving through life with an invisible weight tethered to their very cells. Every moment of anxiety, every skipped moment of rest, every lingering worry compounds the imbalance, producing ripple effects that touch not only physical health, but emotional resilience and cognitive clarity. Fatigue becomes a constant companion, not the result of a single sleepless night, but the cumulative consequence of months, even years, of stress-induced hormonal turbulence. Skin becomes reactive as inflammation rises in response to chronic cortisol exposure, creating a visible manifestation of inner unrest. Energy crashes mid-morning, cravings for sugar or processed foods intensify, and sleep becomes shallow, leaving the body in a perpetual state of recovery without relief. This is the paradox of stress. It is both invisible and undeniable, subtle yet overpowering, and the more it is ignored, the more it dictates the rhythm of life. The suspense lies in the slow unveiling of these consequences. If left unchecked, the disruption reaches deeper layers, affecting reproductive capacity, metabolic efficiency, and emotional regulation in ways that are often alarming when finally realized. Dr. Felice Gersh reminds us that stress is not simply an emotional burden, but a biochemical script that writes itself across the body. The suspense of this reality emerges gradually. It is the quiet, insidious accumulation that surprises women when they notice irregular cycles, sudden weight gain despite strict eating habits, or unexplained anxiety and irritability. These signals are not isolated. They are the body's urgent messages, calling attention to an environment that feels unsafe even when the mind perceives normalcy. The emotional implications are equally profound. Heightened cortisol amplifies the perception of threat, leaving the nervous system in a persistent state of hypervigilance. Small inconveniences can provoke disproportionate responses, decisions become clouded, and the ability to experience joy becomes muted. This is why chronic stress is often so misunderstood. It masquerades as fatigue, frustration, or impatience, while silently orchestrating a series of physiological disruptions that affect nearly every aspect of health. Insulin, the key to managing blood sugar, becomes less responsive under prolonged stress, leading to cycles of energy highs and lows that fuel cravings and promote fat storage, particularly in the abdominal area. These metabolic changes are not merely cosmetic. They affect cardiovascular health, inflammation levels, and long-term energy sustainability. Meanwhile, reproductive hormones struggle to maintain balance under the dominance of cortisol. Estrogen, progesterone, and luteinizing hormone may fluctuate unpredictably, creating irregular cycles, diminished fertility, and emotional instability that can compound feelings of frustration and helplessness. The suspense builds because these changes do not announce themselves dramatically. They evolve quietly, weaving a complex tapestry of symptoms that can feel confusing and disheartening. And yet, within this complex and suspenseful landscape lies the opportunity for profound empowerment. Recognizing that the body's signals are not failures, but guidance is transformative. Each symptom, each moment of fatigue, each emotional spike is an invitation to respond, to restore balance, and to reclaim agency over one's own health. Dr. Felice Gersh emphasizes that women do not need to endure these changes passively. With awareness, practical strategies, and consistent lifestyle interventions, the body has an extraordinary capacity to recalibrate. Nutrition becomes a foundational tool, not as a restriction, but as an ally. Foods rich in antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and micronutrients support adrenal health, reduce inflammation, and help stabilize blood sugar. Mindful practices, meditation, deep breathing, and intentional relaxation signal to the nervous system that safety is present, allowing cortisol levels to normalize and nervous system activation to decline. Sleep, often the first casualty of chronic stress, is a critical area for restoration. Consistent sleep schedules, a dark and cool environment, and mindful pre-sleep routines communicate to the body that recovery is permissible and expected. Movement, too, must be approached thoughtfully. Moderate exercise supports metabolic function and hormonal regulation, yet overexertion or highly intense workouts under stress can exacerbate cortisol levels rather than relieve them. The suspense deepens as one realizes the delicate balance required. Too little intervention allows stress to persist. Too much or the wrong type of intervention can unintentionally worsen imbalance. Emotional processing becomes equally crucial. Chronic stress often builds from unresolved experiences, unexpressed feelings, and a life lived under relentless demands. Journaling, therapy, or reflective practices allow these emotions to surface and be integrated rather than suppressed, reducing the cumulative burden on the nervous system. It is within this nuanced approach, balancing nutrition, movement, mindfulness, sleep, and emotional awareness, that restoration becomes possible. Each small intentional step acts as a signal to the body. Life is not a constant threat. Survival mode can end. Balance is attainable. Dr. Felice Gersh highlights that this process is both art and science, requiring consistent practice, self-compassion, and patience. The suspense resolves not in a dramatic revelation, but in the steady accumulation of conscious choices that recalibrate hormonal rhythms and restore vitality. Understanding stress in this way transforms fear into strategy, chaos into clarity, and fatigue into energy that is sustainable and life-affirming. Women discover that their bodies are not static or helpless, but responsive and resilient, capable of regaining equilibrium when nurtured with intention. Even in moments where imbalance feels entrenched, the promise of restoration remains, a reminder that the body's wisdom, when honored, provides the roadmap for recovery. This awakening brings with it a profound philosophical insight. Health is not merely the absence of symptoms, but the alignment of mind, body, and spirit in a rhythm that feels natural, empowering, and joyful. Recognizing the subtlety and power of chronic stress invites a shift in perception, transforming what initially appears as a limitation into an opportunity for deep self-awareness and transformative change. By engaging fully with the principles outlined by experts such as Dr. Felice Gersh, women are not only equipped to counteract the effects of cortisol overload, but are also empowered to cultivate a life that is intentional, balanced, and deeply aligned with their intrinsic rhythms. And so, the journey continues. The suspense of chronic stress gives way to the empowerment of understanding. The mystery of hormonal imbalance is replaced by actionable insight, and the seemingly insurmountable challenges of fatigue, emotional instability, and metabolic disruption transform into opportunities for restoration, resilience, and profound personal growth. Now, as we move toward resolution and empowerment, it is essential to recognize that the journey from cortisol overload and hormonal imbalance to restoration is not a linear path, but a deliberate, mindful practice that intertwines body, mind, and lifestyle. The first step lies in cultivating awareness, acknowledging that the sensations of fatigue, mood fluctuations, irregular cycles, and unexplained weight changes are not random or signs of personal failure, but clear signals that the body is asking for attention, support, and recalibration. Dr. Felice Gersh emphasizes that this awareness is profoundly liberating because it transforms a narrative of helplessness into a roadmap for proactive change. Understanding that hormones operate in a delicate balance, where cortisol, insulin, and reproductive hormones communicate continuously with each other, allows women to approach health not as a series of isolated problems, but as a unified system in need of thoughtful care. Practical strategies emerge from this awareness, beginning with nutrition, which serves as the foundation of physiological resilience. A diet rich in whole foods, adequate protein, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and micronutrients supports adrenal function, stabilizes blood sugar, and provides the building blocks for balanced reproductive hormones. Minimizing processed sugars and refined carbohydrates is particularly crucial, as these foods amplify insulin spikes that cascade into cortisol dysregulation, perpetuating cycles of fatigue, cravings, and metabolic stress. Equally vital is hydration and the inclusion of foods with anti-inflammatory properties, which help mitigate the internal stress signals that manifest as bloating, skin inflammation, or joint discomfort. Beyond nutrition, mindful movement acts as both a physical and neurological reset. Exercise, when approached strategically, reduces excess cortisol, improves insulin sensitivity, and supports metabolic efficiency, while also fostering emotional release and clarity of thought. Low-impact activities such as yoga, tai chi, walking, and moderate resistance training signal to the body that energy is being expended safely, in alignment with well-being rather than survival. Sleep, often overlooked in modern life, is the third pillar of hormonal restoration. Consistent sleep schedules, a calm and dark environment, and mindful pre-bedtime routines communicate safety to the nervous system, allowing the adrenal glands to downregulate cortisol production and permitting reproductive hormones to recalibrate naturally. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a biological necessity for the restoration of energy, mood, and cellular health, and it is non-negotiable when the goal is to reverse the effects of chronic stress. Equally transformative are mindfulness and stress reduction practices, which directly influence cortisol levels and nervous system activation. Meditation, breath work, and reflective journaling create moments of intentional calm, teaching the body that perceived threats can be safely released. In these moments, the nervous system learns that life is not a constant emergency, and cortisol can return to adaptive, beneficial levels rather than remaining chronically elevated. Emotional processing also plays a critical role in this journey. Chronic stress often accrues from unaddressed emotions, persistent worries, and pressures that are not consciously acknowledged. By providing space to identify, honor, and integrate these feelings, women reduce the hidden physiological burden of unresolved stress, allowing hormonal systems to function with greater clarity and stability. This process, while subtle, is profoundly powerful. The mind-body connection becomes a tangible force in restoring vitality, resilience, and balance. Dr. Felice Gersh underscores the importance of this holistic approach, emphasizing that hormonal harmony is achieved not through a single intervention, but through the integration of multiple, reinforcing strategies that support both the body and the mind simultaneously. As awareness and lifestyle adjustments begin to take hold, women may notice incremental changes: a morning that feels lighter, a cycle that grows more predictable, skin that clears, energy that stabilizes, and a mood that becomes more even and resilient. These shifts, though gradual, signal the body's capacity to recover and the inherent resilience that exists within each individual. Patience becomes essential in this journey because hormonal restoration cannot be rushed. The body responds best when nurtured consistently, intentionally, and compassionately. Alongside these strategies, the philosophical dimension of this work invites women to consider health as a reflection of harmony between internal and external life. Chronic stress often arises from living out of alignment with personal values, needs, and rhythms. By integrating reflection, self-compassion, and mindful boundary setting, women create environments, both external and internal, that are conducive to physiological balance, emotional clarity, and sustainable well-being. The act of reclaiming balance is both practical and deeply empowering. It communicates a profound message. Life is not meant to be endured under constant pressure. The body is not a machine to be coerced into obedience, and health is not a reward, but a natural state achievable through conscious engagement and respect for one's own rhythms. Hormonal harmony, once disrupted, can be restored with persistence, knowledge, and mindful action. The suspense that loomed earlier, the quiet, insidious accumulation of stress, now resolves into empowerment as awareness and intervention combine to reclaim energy, resilience, and joy. Women begin to see themselves not as passive recipients of hormonal misfortune, but as active participants in their own restoration. The philosophical insight is clear. The interplay of hormones, stress, and lifestyle is not a burden, but a guide, a set of signals illuminating where attention, care, and intention are most needed. By responding thoughtfully, the body communicates its needs, healing begins, and the natural rhythm of life can once again be felt in the clarity of thought, steadiness of mood, and vitality of energy. It is within this space of conscious choice that transformation occurs, where the narrative shifts from struggle to mastery, from fatigue to vitality, from imbalance to resilience. Every small decision, choosing nourishing foods, prioritizing sleep, engaging in movement, practicing mindfulness, and setting boundaries, is a declaration that the body's signals matter, that restoration is possible, and that life can be approached with intention rather than reaction. Ultimately, the journey toward hormonal balance is not only about correcting cortisol overload or managing insulin spikes, it is about cultivating a life in which women feel empowered, aligned, and attuned to their own bodies. Dr. Felice Gersh's guidance reminds us that this restoration is accessible to all who commit to understanding, honoring, and supporting their physiological and emotional needs. With awareness, action, and consistency, women can reclaim control over their energy, metabolism, reproductive health, and emotional resilience, transforming the quiet chaos of chronic stress into a symphony of harmony and vitality. This is the promise of intentional living, that the body, mind, and spirit, when nurtured with knowledge, respect, and care, will naturally return to balance, strength, and sustained well-being. And as this journey unfolds, every woman has the opportunity to experience the profound freedom that comes from understanding her body, honoring her rhythms, and embracing the tools, strategies, and wisdom that restore health and empower life. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.